This is Support is Sexy, episode 265, with serial entrepreneur Faven Ressom, owner of Faved Events, Foreign Girl Productions, and Culinary Passport Atlanta. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here. It just would not be the same without you. And today I'm excited to celebrate our guest, Faven Ressom. And Faven is a serial entrepreneur, so she has many businesses, but she's very focused on what she wants to create in the future. And that's what I love about her story and what she's up to. But Faven and I actually met at one of her spectacular brunches here in Atlanta. You will hear me gush about it in this episode. The music, the food, the crowd, the ambiance, everything was perfect. And Faven, who owns an events company, really prides herself on creating spaces where everybody feels comfortable, has, of course, a good time, but that it's also an inclusive crowd. Everything from the music to the food to the people, of course. So in this episode, you will hear her talk about how to create the perfect event. But also what I love about her story is that she, again, has the vision for what she wants to do in the future. And she talks about ways that you can leverage what you're already good at to create some of the other things you want to create as your brand, your business, even your vision for yourself and what you want to do evolves. So on this episode, what you'll hear from Faven is having the courage to embrace what's working, how to differentiate yourself in a saturated market. And she talks about this because I had a question just about her making her own way in the quote unquote nightlife scene, which is usually a male dominated industry. So she has good advice about that. Also, the importance of learning the word no, very important. One of the most important ingredients of hosting events, why you have to evolve and go outside of your comfort zone, why you have to believe in yourself when no one else does, and the importance of defining success for yourself. Another thing that I have to mention, too, is Faven is very open in sharing her story about being an immigrant to the U.S., coming here from Ethiopia, and talking about fitting in or feeling like not fitting in, and how that sort of drives her business and the things that she creates today. So I love all of the women really sharing parts of their story from when they were growing up or whatever they experienced, and how that all plays into not only who they are, but the work they do today. So you can think about some of the things that you are either going through now or you have been in the past, and how you can turn that into a positive and really create something special, something uniquely you in the world. All right, so now without further ado, Faven Ressom. So Faven, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
It's funny, a lot of people tell you stories of, when they were in school and they used to sell candy or do parties or whatever it is. But I honestly don't have a story as to when I fell in love with entrepreneurship. I think it's just kind of always been inside of me.
What do you think? Why do you think, rather, it's always been inside of you? Was it just something you've always been drawn to? Did you always think that that's what you'd eventually do?
Always, but I think it also has a lot to do with the fact that I've kind of been on my own since I was 14. I don't know if we talked too much about this, but I came to the States, I was 7, and I was kind of here alone because my family that was already here didn't really understand the American culture. So I kind of had to maneuver my way into assimilating and just kind of figuring out life as it is. So I honestly think that's kind of where my love of entrepreneurship comes from.
So it's really a survival thing, sort of figuring out how to make your own way.
Absolutely.
And you came here from Ethiopia, right?
Yeah, so my family is Eritrean, but I was born in Ethiopia, and I came here at the age of 7. I've been in Atlanta since. I moved to Arizona for about a year and then moved back, but Atlanta is my home.
So what was a young Faven like making that transition, coming to the U.S., surviving and figuring things out? What would you say you were like at that time?
Oh, man, I was a tough cookie because, kids are mean and they didn't really embrace me because I didn't look like them. I didn't sound like them. I didn't really speak English too well. I couldn't go to the mall after school. I couldn't stay after school and play soccer. So I was a little alienated. So that made me a little tough because I was absolutely not taking any bullying.
What did you do to sort of protect yourself during that time, or to occupy yourself during that time?
You know what? I really just dove into books. I read a lot of books when I was younger because that was kind of my escape. And that's how I went into a different world. You broaden your imagination and your horizon, and books were kind of my escape at that time. Because I didn't really have any other choice,
Yeah, they're an excellent escape. A lot of people I know who go through different things in childhood or just feel sort of isolated used books in some way to escape.
Yep, that was me. That's my story.
Who would you say then were some of your greatest influences growing up?
I'll tell you this, more than when I was younger. Right now, my biggest influence, as crazy as it sounds, is Angelina Jolie. Just seeing what she's gone through and the person that she's become. She's so giving and she's just so care. That to me is everything. Like we all know her story, what she's gone through. She's been the crazy girl, making out with her brother on camera right. And then marrying. I can't remember his name. The Billy guy with Bob the vial Thornton. Of blood. Yes, and then what's the last one? I'm drawing blanks on
Brad
name. Brad Pitt, and then going through divorce and having adopted all those children. And the amount of work that she does for the community and the world as a whole, I think is absolutely amazing.
When did you first sort of discover Angelina Jolie and her story? Was this something you've been inspired by for years, or would you say more recently?
I think more recently when she made that transition of going from an actress to more of a humanitarian. Mm-hmm. That's when I started paying a little bit more attention of how much time she was committing and how much money she was giving back all over the world too, not just in the States, but really all over the world.
Would you say that's something that is really important to you as well, figuring out the ways that you will give back also?
No, absolutely. Part of my business plan, we all have kind of like our calling. And my thing, as I've always said, it's encouraging diversity and inclusiveness in Atlanta. So majority of my businesses or events that I do kind of fall under that category.
In what ways would you say that you encourage diversity through your events? What is it that you make sure that each has, or what is the component that really matters to you?
I think first and foremost is making everybody feel comfortable at an event, and giving them just making it feel like it's about the music. So it's not about race, color, culture, or any of or creed. It's more about the music and the energy of the place and the ambiance. So people have that one thing in common, and that may be music, or that may be wherever the venue is or the theme of the event. So you just really, honestly, at the end of the day, it's about comfort, and that brings along hospitality and experience when they're at your event.
Now, when you were growing, did you grow up with your grandparents or other extended family once you made it here to Atlanta?
I grew up with my oldest sister. She was the first one to come to the United States from our family. So she was here, married, and had 2 younger kids. So I grew up with her.
Okay. So what did, during that time when you were escaping through books and things, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up? Did you have any idea? Or what did you think you wanted to be?
The last thing I thought I would be doing is promotion or events.
Right.
Culturally, where I come from, you're expected to go into the medical field or business. So my family's definition of success for me was, briefcase, a suit, or a nurse outfit, and 2 kids, a picket fence, and a husband. That was really their definition of success. But for me, it was about really figuring out what I was passionate about and being happy every day and doing whatever it was that I was doing. But definitely, I did not foresee, nightlife.
How did you then end up in the space where you are doing some of the hottest events in Atlanta? How does one get to that point?
So it was by chance. When I was a sophomore in college, I don't know how familiar you are or our listeners are with Atlanta, but there's a gentleman by the name of Alex, and he owns some of the largest clubs in Atlanta. And at that time, about 2001, he was promoter. And I actually just kind of jumped on his team to help him with some of his events, running the doors, some marketing stuff. And that's it was all by chance. It was never part of my plan. And that's how it started. And over time, I kept walking away from nightlife, kept walking away from it, but it just kept drawing me in.
Kept pulling you back in like the Godfather.
It did, to the point where I literally packed my stuff and moved to Arizona for a year because I wanted to get away from it so bad. And I come back to Atlanta, and I don't know, it was maybe like 2 years later, I somehow got back into the industry. And, sometimes you just have to embrace those who embrace you, or an industry that you just seem to thrive in. And that's what I did. I said, let me just run with it and see where it goes. Here we are.
Here we are. Where were you in school at the time? You mentioned you were in college at that time.
Georgia State.
Georgia State. Okay. What were you studying there?
I went to school for broadcast journalism.
Okay. So now you said you wanted to escape and you went to Phoenix. So what was it that made you want to leave the industry or escape at that time?
I think I was just getting tired of the late nights.
Burnout?
Remember I said it was somewhat of a burnout because I honestly sometimes just wanted to be in bed at 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And with this industry, sometimes you're out until 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, not only because you have to close out your events, but you also have to go and support others who are in the industry. And you have to be visible, and you have to be social, and you have to be out. And so sometimes it wears you out a little bit, and you're like, all right, I need a break. And that kind of was what that was. That was a little bit of a break for me.
What would you say for people listening, and we have listeners all over the world, but what would you say for people listening was the thing for you or the moment for you that let you know, okay, this is either obviously something that you were good at or something that you should give a try? You said at a point you decided, okay, I need to just run with this because it keeps working. But for those listening who are trying to figure out what the thing is for them or what's working for them, what would you say it was for you that sort of gave you that aha?
With nightlife?
With nightlife.
I think it was more of people around me. For the longest time, I refused to embrace it to the point where I didn't even like the term promoter. I'd be like, no, people, don't call me a promoter. I'm an event coordinator, or I'm an event marketer. But, one thing I'll tell you is very lucrative. Mm-hmm. And just seeing how lucrative it was and seeing the flexibility that I had, because usually I would have maybe 2 events a week. And so the rest of the week, I'm free to pursue whatever it is that I wanted to pursue, whether it be a business, personal, traveling, developing whatever skills or hobbies that I had. That was the thing that kind of was like, okay, let me just go ahead and let this be my base or my source of income as I pursue these other potential opportunities that may allow me to, either go to the next level or make the transition into something else.
Smart. Now, what would you say, were there any, or are there any challenges that you face as a woman in the industry or in the nightlife?
Oh, absolutely. Just being a woman, because it's such a male-dominated industry, it takes a lot of time to actually gain the respect of the industry. As unfortunate as it is, most times people will assume that, you got to where you are not because of your skills or your abilities, but because of,
your looks,
other things. Yeah, your looks, or, people that or relationships that you've had. Mm-hmm. But at this point, I've been in the industry for about 16 years. And I rarely got involved with too many people in the industry. At the beginning, I literally went to work and went home. Didn't go out after, didn't do anything after, and didn't really get involved with too many people. A lot of people didn't even know my last name until very recently, because I kept it very, very separate. And I think that's the key, is that you have to keep your personal life separate from the industry if you are in the industry.
How did you, along with that, how did you sort of make yourself in the right way stand out in the industry? Because I'm sure there are other people who were, especially when you started out, had different kind of events and things going on. This gentleman, Alex, that you mentioned is the big person as far as nightlife in Atlanta. So how did you make your events and things different for those who might be interested in events and promotions and that kind of thing?
So basically what I did a little different from what he had going on, because I felt like he had cornered that market. That was his niche, right?
Which was?
And everyone else, which was the big celebrity hosted 500 to 1,000 people events at big clubs. It was very clubby. It was very turn up. It was club party. And 90% of the time there was a cover to get in, and it was hosted by one celebrity or an athlete or whatever it was. For me, I decided to take the exact opposite route because, like I said, everyone that was coming behind him was literally trying to duplicate what he was already doing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I decided to do was focus a little bit more on smaller venues and organic growth. So none of my events were ever hosted by celebrity. We did get a lot of celebrities because celebrities wanted to get away from, the photographs and being bombarded by people when they're out and about.
Right.
And
Celebrities want to get away from the celebrity events sometimes.
Out most of the time they do, unless they're getting paid, right?
Right.
Yeah, if they're not getting a check, they're like, no, I'm okay. Because it's just, for me, I don't know if it's because I'm at the age that I am. Sometimes those big parties can be claustrophobic.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in a room full of people that you have nothing in common with. And no one's dancing. Everyone's just kind of looking around, looking in the same direction at whoever may be hosting the event for the night. So I completely deviated from that and focused on smaller events. I went for venues that held 200 or less people, and it was an organic growth. Majority of the time, my events didn't really pick up until 6 months to a year from the point that I started, because there was a lot of word of mouth. We just started bringing in photographers. I didn't used to have photographers at events. So I think that's kind of what set it apart. And the music was a little different. We gave it a worldly vibe, made sure that the events were diverse, and we had people from all walks of life.
The music at your last, for everyone listening, I met Faven recently at one of her fabulous brunches, and the music was so good, people wanted to get up and dance. But then the food was so good that you wanted to sit down and eat. So that's a good combination. That was a good combination.
Exactly. You have to find a happy medium, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and you just wanted to be there. And it wasn't to look at anyone else.
And speaking of the music, I have worked with that DJ since 2006.
So good.
Yeah.
Where is the DJ from?
That's another thing. Huh?
Is he from here? He's not from the U.S., is he?
He's from Jamaica.
Okay.
But he's been here for quite some time. So he's fantastic. Probably one of the best DJs in the city.
So good. And I thought about it because when you said the word worldly, that's what the music felt like. It didn't feel like one certain type of music. I think he played Madonna at one point, and then we were all having a conversation at my table about the first time we saw Madonna. It was just the right vibe and energy, which you created.
Yes. And the food was good, like you said, and it was a good experience.
Food was so good. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so.
What would you say? What would you say your advice might be to your younger self as a young woman first starting out, getting into that particular industry, at least at that time? What would have been some advice that you would either wanted to hear or something you'd want to share with that person?
Learn the word no. Be okay with saying no. And that's something that I just learned, and it's my favorite word right now. Like, you cannot get me to stop saying no. I used to feel like I had to say yes to everybody and everything, from, going to support other people's events to promoting for them or whatever it is. But, unfortunately, people aren't really out. It's a lot of people are selfish. And that was a realization that I had to come to. People won't do for you what you do for them, but they expect certain things in return. So that was, I would have taught myself, oh my God, if I could go back to about 10 years, that would have been the first thing I told my younger self.
When did you come to the point that you realize I have to start? No is self-care, if you ask me. And sometimes you just have to take care of yourself and say no. But what would you say the moment was, if you remember, for you, when you really realized, you know what, I have to start saying no to some things?
Just an experience I had with a business partner / who was also a friend of mine. And I just had to be like, you know what? I love you. We're friends, but we're not good partners when it comes to business, because we're not on the same. We're not going in the same direction. And that was a big step for me.
Was it difficult to make that move?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I lost sleep over that I was like trying to figure it out. Is this a good move? What's going to happen? So it was a really, really tough decision.
How did you get through that time?
You know what? I had to come to the realization that doing what's best for me is not being selfish.
Right.
And that was part of the no, the no lesson is sometimes you just have to do what's best for you, and life goes on, right?
Life goes on. Things evolve. Things change.
Absolutely.
That's
and
right.
If things aren't evolving and things aren't changing, and we're not growing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's a perfect segue into what I was going to ask you about next, actually, just your brand continuing to evolve and even along with the nightlife and the events, and not even just nightlife, you do events overall. But I wanted to really chat with you about a great event you have coming up, the Food Festival, and hear about that and why that's so important to you. Because it's, of course, as with you, it's more than just a food festival.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said earlier, one of the things I struggled with growing up was figuring out a balance between my native culture and the American culture and assimilating into the American culture without really losing myself and my identity. And here in Atlanta, as big of a city as we are, and we've got people from all over the world, everyone just kind of stays in their little corner. And no one ever really mixes. And part of the reason why people don't mix is because they're scared of what they don't know. So if I don't know anything about the Russian culture or etiquette or cuisine, I'm not going to just venture off into the Russian community and go to their grocery stores or their restaurants or places where they socialize. So I decided food and music is something that brings people together. So why not take those two elements, give a platform for people to come in and sample food from all over the world, but not just food, but authentic food from restaurants around the city. And a lot of times people that go out that have the disposable income live, and I could be wrong, but most of the people live in the city, whether it's Buckhead, Midtown. And a lot of these restaurants are outside of the city. And so they're not aware of them, or they don't just venture out to go try.
Are they like in those particular neighborhoods, right? Where the
yes, majority of the time the authentic ones are. And so we're giving them a platform to introduce the cuisine, the culture, etiquette, pairing, whether it be liquor or wine. And we're literally giving these restaurants the platform to just come in and educate people on their food and culture, period.
Where did this idea first come from for you? Was it obviously your personal experience, but when did it evolve into, I'm going to host a food festival?
It's kind of a four-parter thing that I have. And, there's a documentary style reality show. There's a nonprofit. There's an interactive website that's coming. And the food festival was just something that having all this experience in the events world and working with so many restaurants and lounges, it just only made sense. And I felt like it's a comfort thing. Again, people love food, people love music, and those are two of the things that unite communities and people overall. You don't have to speak the same language to enjoy food or music.
What would you say is the key for those listening who might be interested in events or event planning or hosting an event? What would you say for you found has been the key to success for an event? Is it about location? Is it about the people there? Is it about sort of the theme, whether it's food festival or brunch or that kind of thing, or a combination of all of those things?
It's definitely a combination of all those things. So obviously the biggest thing is experience. If people are coming to your event, they have to have an experience, right? From hospitality to music to food to venue. So all of those things combined.
Would you say that?
Yes.
Would you say that? I have never thrown a huge event, not enough, certainly not as many as you have. Would you say though that that intention plays into it at all as well?
Oh, absolutely. The intention of the event.
Yes,
it absolutely does. I'll tell you. So even with my events, I'm passionate about it now. Do you know what I mean? It's not just about coming in and doing an event about money. It's not about money. Obviously, when you're putting so much time and effort into something, you want to get paid and you want to, get your time's worth. But if you're driven by money, a lot of time you're going to lose sight of why you're doing the event.
Right.
And definitely intention is everything. That's why all of my events honestly have run a long time. So longevity is very important to me. That's also because it starts off organic. We don't come out and say, oh, we're the biggest party in the city, and then be done in 6 months.
Right.
Yeah, so organic growth is definitely key, and intention is key. If you're just going in there, like I said, and you just want to make some money, then that's really your focus, right? You want to try to get as many people as you can to spend as much as they can versus getting the right people. So it's quality versus quantity.
So with the food festival, how did you know, or how did you decide sort of what restaurants to include? Because is it 25? Did you tell me how many?
It's 25. Yes, we're doing 25 restaurants. And what we did is we came up with a list of not all of them, but a lot of the international restaurants around Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And we spoke with people that are from that culture and asked their feedback. And we've also gone and had food there, just kind of felt the experience. Because what I notice is, as an Ethiopian who knows what authentic Ethiopian food is supposed to be like, you can't go to a TripAdvisory or Yelp to get real feedback. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we really directly had to go to the source and say, hey, you're German. What German restaurant would you recommend as being as authentic to German as it possibly can, or Greek or Vietnamese or whatever it is? So that's been the key in helping us identify which restaurants would be best for our festival.
So interesting. That's one of the best advice that I received. This was years ago when friends and I were traveling. You know, you go to another country, Thailand or wherever, and they said, if you want to know the best authentic food, ask the people who work at the venue. Not absolutely. Not the concierge and that kind of thing. Ask the bellman or the woman behind the desk, or where do you eat, what your favorite restaurant is, if you really want to try authentic food. Because
the concierge are getting paid to recommend certain restaurants. Right. And it's the same thing. Like, I'm not going to go to TripAdvisory and try to get reviews for, let's say, I don't know, South African food. Mm-hmm. You know, Yelp, a lot of times you pay for those ratings. And then with TripAdvisory, a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, as a foreigner, we don't review restaurants. Mm-hmm. But I would tell you better, I would be the better person to tell you where to go have authentic Ethiopian food versus somebody that just started Ethiopian food and really has no idea what Ethiopian food is supposed to be like.
Or someone who opened the restaurant just because it's popular or it's in the area where a lot of people eat Ethiopian food, right? Exactly.
Yep. Just like, when you go to a restaurant, if you're going to like a Chinese restaurant, you want to make sure it's a lot of Chinese people in there, right?
Right.
It's the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Which I know a lot of Chinese people who say the quote unquote Chinese food here isn't authentic Chinese food at most of those restaurants.
Listen, and I will agree with them because I can only speak on Thai food. When I'm here, I love Thai food here. It's one of my favorite foods. When I was in Thailand, I could not stomach it.
Mm-hmm, because
they use a lot of fish oil, and I could barely handle the smell of fish oil. And that's all you smell everywhere.
The unique experience, the authentic experience.
Yes, that was the authentic experience, but I could not handle it. I literally ate KFC every night.
Oh my God!
When we were in Thailand.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, you have to go to people that actually have had or know what authentic food is supposed to be like.
So the food festival is on November
2nd. It's going to be at the Stave Room, right off of Armour Drive.
Okay, for everyone listening, I'll make sure I have a link, of course, and the address and everything there so you can check it out. But what would you say, Raven, is what is your vision for the festival? Is it something that you want to do again at another time? Is it something you want to see how it goes this time? What do you want people to walk away with?
I absolutely want to make this an annual event, and I have a partner that's doing this with me. We have actually discussed maybe adding a family-friendly portion of it, because this is for adults. It's from 7 to 11 p.m., but we're thinking maybe adding an outdoor food festival, because this is definitely something that you want to bring your children to. It's an experience that kids should have. So absolutely, this adult version will be an annual thing, and hopefully next year we can add the family-friendly version to it.
The outdoor street component sounds wonderful. I mean, being from New York, there was always roll up on a street festival somewhere. But like you said, it's a great place for family and kids, and everybody enjoys it. And especially with having food be such a part of it would be great.
Yeah, and I just honestly, at the end of this, I want people to have experienced something different, something new, and be willing to open up, to try different things, to venture out of their comfort zone. Because that's the thing, is we're so complacent and comfortable in wherever we are that we're not willing to go outside of that.
So speaking of that, what about for you? Do you feel like this is something that is sort of pushing you outside of your comfort zone, or is that something that you're looking forward to doing even more as you evolve from, as we said, the nightlife? And this is still an event, but it's something different from what you normally do. Do you feel like it's you moving in that direction?
Yes. This is an annual thing. So, I won't necessarily have to be at an event every week or whatever. But my plan ultimately is to get this off the ground. And there's a nonprofit that I again, that fits into this whole umbrella, under this umbrella that I'm really, really working towards. Like I'm a serial entrepreneur, so it's like, what's the next venture for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so after the food festival, I plan on finalizing the stuff for the nonprofit organization. And basically, the nonprofit organization is very similar to the Boys and Girls Club of America and Big Sister, Big Brother. And basically, what it does is it pairs up people of the same cultural background, just to make that transition or to assimilate into the American culture with somebody that's been through it, guiding you, that serves as a liaison between, the mentee and the parent and the school and the community and their peers, because it really is a struggle, right? And that was something, like I said earlier, that I struggled with. So it's just wanting to give back to the community, and being a first generation American is hard on its own. And then going to, like we said earlier, kids are very mean and they're harsh. And that can really shape a child in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where my next venture is that. And then I told you I'm also doing, I've been shopping around a documentary style reality show. I've kind of decided that I'm going to go on my own and try to do a YouTube series, because the networks are not jumping on it the way that I thought that they would.
Mm-hmm. Because you're smart. That's right. Show them what you can do.
Listen, this show doesn't fit into the Atlanta reality show formula, so they're all kind of like,
Right.
So I'm like, okay, not a problem.
It's not what we already see and what's already working, so nah.
Not at all. So they're like, oh, maybe later, maybe next year. So I just said, hey, why not? Let me try it. What do I have to lose, right?
Right, and you have everything
Absolutely
to gain.
nothing. Absolutely, yeah.
So what would you say then, as much as you can tell about that, because I know it's still in development, what would you say then is that you want to be different about the show that you're creating?
The feedback that I keep getting is that there's not enough drama. Again, it all goes back to cultural conflict. And that's the conflict here, is that, you've got women from all over the world that are kind of trying to find their balance as they define success and their career, relationship, religion, culture, just socially. And it's them keeping the balance with their native culture and their American culture. So what they're missing is the throwing drinks in each other's faces, or, the he said, she said, and the fighting and all of that. I mean, there's still going to be some drama. It's just that our drama is a little different from your stereotypical reality drama.
Right. Your hero's journey or your conflict is a little bit different than that. It's not
Absolutely.
as contrived. It's true. It sounds like true experience.
And that's why I won't say it's a documentary style reality show.
Mm-hmm.
So we're documenting these women as they're just kind of evolving and having to struggle, again, whether it's cultural struggle, personal struggles. And, it's a lot of times they're dealing with the same issues that Americans are dealing with. It's just that you have the added component of a different culture.
Speaking about that, I know you mentioned earlier, too, this sort of definition of success, at least for your family. But I know a lot of women that I talk to who are from immigrant families, especially if they're entrepreneurs, their families, either their parents may have been entrepreneurs, again, because of survival. And then they think, why would you want to do that? We had to struggle to do that. We want you to go to school and get a great job. Or their parents are all about education and school. But either way, there's sometimes, not always, but a lot of times a conflict there culturally. So for you, how did you have to define success for yourself? And was it difficult to, if at all, explain to your family that you were doing something totally different?
So because of the nightlife situation and because it's so taboo, it really took me a minute for me to be comfortable and discuss and have my family at some of my events. When I was in school, I went to school for broadcast journalism. That alone was an issue because I started off majoring in finance, and I made the decision on my own to say, listen, this isn't what I want to do. I thought at some point that I wanted to be a producer talk show or like something similar to E-News. That was my thing, is I wanted to produce something similar to that. So I took it upon myself to just drop finance and pick up broadcast journalism. They weren't happy with it, but I was kind of like, hey, it's not in a disrespectful way, obviously, but it was more like, well, this is my life. I have to live it. I have to be happy and I have to enjoy. I have to wake up every morning not dreading, oh God, another day at work. And that was my thing, is I wanted to find something that I was truly, truly passionate about. And over time, my family just kind of understood what I did, and they saw that the important thing was that I was taking care of myself, you know, whether as an entrepreneur or working for somebody, I was doing well, and that just kind of, they just kind of got over it.
Right.
And I do have a lot of nieces and nephews, that I have about 10 of them, and they look to me a lot as well. So I want them to understand that success is not defined by going to school and getting a degree, because there are plenty of people that go and get a degree and spend the rest of their lives, you know, working for others, miserable. And then the second part of their life, they're trying to either, you know, enjoy it or whatever it is. I want them to understand it's about really figuring out what you're truly passionate about, what makes you happy, and going for that.
Amen.
And this isn't to discourage people from going to school, because I still have these conversations with my nieces and nephews. I want them to go to school. I want them to get their degrees, but that's not the it all be all.
Right. And it doesn't solve all of those problems of those questions, I should say, of what am I going to do or how is this going to work? Because a lot of us go to school for one thing and do something totally different.
Absolutely. Yeah. But that also comes from lack of for me anyway, growing up, I wasn't allowed to be independent or creative. It was go to school, go to school, go to school, go to school. So I didn't have the opportunity to really figure out what I wanted to do at a younger age. So I just kind of was like, all right, let me go to school, let me get my degree, and then I'll figure it out and what I wanted to do in pursuing that. I almost felt like I wasted some time. Yeah. But again, I'm a woman of faith, so I know that everything happens for a reason. And I'm here today for a reason, and I was there then for a reason.
What would you say then entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
Again, I know, and I keep beating this point, but it's about figuring out what's important to you and what you're passionate about, and really making that into something that allows you to make a living, right? And that's been my thing is, you know, people are always like, oh, well, how can you travel so much? How can you afford to do this? How can you afford to do that? Is one. I figured out what I'm passionate about. And those things for me are family and traveling. I know what I'm doing for a career, and I have a plan. You know, nightlife isn't the ideal plan, but right after that, like I said, there's the events, there's the nonprofit, and then there's the show, and there are a few other things that I'm working on. So for me, it's figuring that out, and it's about having a plan. You can't just jump into something and not really have a plan or an idea of how you're going to get to your end result. You have to have a vision from, 2 years from now, where do you want to be? Or 5 years from now, where do you want to be? And what do you want to be doing?
Right. A plan. And do you also think it's important to look at, okay, where you are now and how you can sort of leverage those opportunities of the things that are working? Sort of like you said, you've created, this name for yourself in the space of nightlife, and events. But then you're looking at how to leverage that into other opportunities.
Oh, but you have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every platform, every stepping stone, you have to take advantage of. And I will tell you this, even though nightlife wasn't necessarily the ideal career for me, I have been able to meet so many amazing people from all over the world that do everything under the sun because of nightlife. So I'm absolutely grateful for it. And the things that I've learned, the opportunities that I've had, the people that I've met are truly, I wouldn't give that up for anything in the world.
Excellent. I wanted to mention that just because I think, and I've been guilty of this myself, sometimes we feel like if we're starting something new or going into a different space or something, we have to leave behind that other thing that we did, even though that other thing is creating possibilities for this future vision or other things that we want to do. Yeah.
No, you can't. Again, I always say that everything in life happens for a reason. I'm here today for a reason. And you can't, I make sure that I stay positive about everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, and all of it is part of my story. So instead of dwelling on the ugly, I always focus on the good,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I don't allow that to drag me down. Being positive and maintaining that positive outlook on life is really key.
Especially the moments where I would imagine, especially with doing events, when things don't work out exactly as planned.
So instead of freaking out in those moments,
Right.
honestly, I just stop and I say, okay, how do I move forward from here? I'm not going to dwell on what went wrong, but how do we move forward and fix this issue? And that's kind of the mindset that you have to have in any business, honestly, but especially in events, because you're going to waste time trying to figure out what went wrong. But in the meantime, the event has to go on, right?
Right. Things still have to keep moving, such as life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, what does your support network look like?
So I'm blessed to have an amazing family. There is a total of 11 of us siblings. In the States, there's 7 of us. My mother is also here. I have my nieces and nephews. I have a circle of amazing people from the industry, outside of the industry. And I've just always just had, for some reason, I've always had really good people around me that have been supportive, that have been encouraging, and that have opened doors for me.
Have you ever had a moment, though, where you had to sort of leave someone behind? Or, well, you talked a little bit about your business partnership, but even in friendships or family, were there moments along the journey when you had to sort of go off on your own, even if you came back later?
Yeah, it happens all the time. But, such is life, like you said earlier, right? Life goes on. And if it's meant to be, they'll find their way back, and vice versa. It happens. It happens a lot.
It happens. That's right.
It happens a lot. But again, remember what I said earlier. I try to make sure not to dwell on it. Mm-hmm. And, my journey is my journey. So I just have to keep going. I can't allow anybody to hold me back or draw me back. So sometimes it's almost like you have to have a tunnel vision.
What are the ways that you take care of yourself? And I ask that because I wonder, you're a person who is really in the spotlight, being out and doing events and people know your name. And, of course, we're all on social media, but you're out at events and people see you in these different places. And, people aren't always as nice as they can be, or maybe they are. I don't know.
No, they're not.
Yeah, right. Or sometimes you don't even know how not nice they're being. So I was curious, in addition to your support network, what are the ways that you make sure you take care of yourself, whether your physical well-being or your mental well-being?
So like I said earlier, I'm very spiritual. One of the things that changed my life was about 5 years ago when I found a home church in Buckhead. It's called Buckhead Church, and I attend as regular as I can. Sometimes it's a little hard because of the events, but that's my driving force right there. I'm telling you, like, I was able to find a church that I could actually connect with. And it wasn't like the Bible says, you have to do this or you're not. That it was more about living your life and how to use the Bible as a guide. And it was very modern day. So we talk about some things that are happening right now and according to the Bible, how you should deal with those things. So that's been a huge part of my life. Also, I'm a hiker, so I love the outdoors. Usually start my day off with a walk in the morning. And a lot of times I like to go by myself because it allows me to be in nature and be in that space, to really just be in the moment and not necessarily focus on the past, the future, or what's going on, but just kind of in that moment. It allows me to be there. And honestly, it allows me to be creative, and I come up with some of my best ideas in that time.
That quiet time, that alone time. It's sort of I know I always say running is my meditation. Once I learned that you didn't just have to sit still to be in that space.
Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I also love to travel, so I incorporate that in my life as much as I possibly can.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. So in closing, Faven, what would you say if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
So honestly, it would have to be my mother, and it's her prayers. It's not even... I didn't grow up with my mother. We reconnected. I mean, she would come back and forth between the States and Ethiopia, but we reconnected, I think, when she came here about 7 years ago, permanently and for good. And honestly, everything that I do, how I think, what would my mom say, or how would my mom feel about this? And I know that she literally prays for me every day, all day. And I feel like that's really what's kept me grounded and has gotten me to where I am today.
What was it like when she finally came here and you were able to reconnect and establish an ongoing relationship with her here?
Oh, it's the best thing ever. I don't see her as much as I should, and she gives me hell for it.
She reminds you of it every day.
She just reminded me when I got to the house today, but it's kind of hard because being an entrepreneur, your schedule is all over, right?
Right.
You never know where you need to be. And my travel schedule is a little complicated too. So her idea is, well, you should just come and have coffee with me and spend a couple of hours. But they live about 40 minutes from where I am. So spend a couple of hours means the whole day. So if I'm driving 40 minutes, it's not going to be an hour or two. I'm here for the day.
I'm staying for a minute.
Yeah. But the connection has been really good. She reminds me, I left when I was 7. So we're always talking about stories from my childhood. And sometimes she gives me hell because she says I'm too ambitious. And instead of focusing on finding a husband, I'm over here trying to build an empire, as she likes to say. Yeah.
Do they give you a hard time about that?
Oh, my God. You have no idea.
We're going to have to talk about that. That's another episode.
That's a whole, we're going to need a couple of hours for that.
Oh, my goodness. So tell us now how we can support you. I'll have links to everything that we mentioned, with the things that you have available, but where can people find you? Where do you want them to follow you and hear what else you're up to?
Absolutely. So I'm on Instagram under my name. It's Faven, F-A-V-E, and as in Nancy, Ressom, R-E-S-S-O-M, on Instagram and Facebook. Also, my business page on Instagram is Faved with a D, F-A-V as in Victor, E-D as in dog. Events with an S. That's Instagram and Facebook as well. And I pretty much put everything on there. So you'll have access to me in my events through those two mediums.
Excellent. Faven, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we met, not only because the food and the music was good, but just because you're such a nice person. I appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Oh, no, I'm so glad. Thank you for having me. And hopefully, if we can't change the world, we change at least one person. Isn't that the saying?
That's right. It only takes one person. Yeah. Excellent.
It only takes one. Yes.
Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
I think just follow your passion. Figure out what your passion is and allow yourself the creativity and the independence to just kind of sometimes lose yourself and where you are in the moment, and just find out what it is that makes you happy and that gives you peace. And once you figure that out, and making that into a money-making opportunity is really the way to go.
Excellent. Faven Ressom, hold on just a minute.
Absolutely.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Faven. Faven, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. For everyone listening, to find out more about Faven's events and all of the things that she's up to, make sure you go to supportissexypodcast.com, go to the search icon at the top, and just search Faven, F-A-V-E-N. You'll see how to get in touch with her, how to find out more about what she's up to, find out more about her events here in Atlanta. You definitely want to find out about that. I'm telling you, the brunch was the bomb. So go to supportissexypodcast.com to find out more. And before we go, I must give a shout out to my dear friend, Tara, who invited me to the brunch. Me and my other friend, Julia, we went and had brunch there. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have met Faven. So Tara, thank you. In fact, I think she even said, you two should talk. And that's how the podcast episode came to be. Because you know why? Support is sexy. Surround yourself with women who support women. That is what it's all about. All right. So thank you all so much for listening. You know I appreciate you. Now, if this is your first time listening, or if you've been here for a long time, either way, if you love what we're doing, please make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. It really helps the show, helps it get out in front of more people, helps spread the message that support is sexy, and having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. So make sure you subscribe so that you also don't miss an episode. Anytime there's something new, you will have it there on your device, wherever you listen, so that you don't miss a thing. And really, if you do like what we're doing, please leave a review. I always say I'd love a 5-star review, but any feedback is important. Reviews help as well. I really love to hear from you in a review or on social media. You know I'm at Elayne Fluker and at Support is Sexy. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're up to too. I would love to hear from you. All right, again, so thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate you. And now you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.